Well, Sheri Colberg's personal struggle with diabetes led her to become a specialist. Her book is Diabetes-Free Kids, a take-charge plan for preventing and treating type 2 diabetes in children. And Sheri, we welcome you to Living the Life. It's great to have you here. Let's start with defining what type 2 diabetes is for somebody who maybe doesn't have the disease and doesn't know anyone who does. That's confusing.
Right. Well, it used to be just an adult disease. You would only see it in people who are about 40 years old or older. And it's usually has to do with insulin not working as well. Our bodies make insulin to help us take glucose, sugar out of the bloodstream. And in type 2s, not only do they not use that insulin very effectively, but over time they start making less and less, which is a little bit different than what typically kids get, which is type 1, where they basically stop making insulin altogether.
How big a problem is this?
It's getting to be a huge problem. It's amazing. 2 decades ago, you saw no kids with type 2 diabetes. Now, as many as 45% of the kids who are being diagnosed.
45%?
Right.
Wow.
They're trying to get a handle on it.
Is it because of what they're eating?
It's a combination of things. I think you guys hit on already. It's food, it's lack of physical activity, and that's probably the biggest thing. It's eating calories in excess. I mean, having access to pre-made, high-calorie, non-nutritious foods.
So what do you do about it? When you looked at that report that we did and you saw that teenager who was so struggling with her weight, and you knew if she doesn't do something about this, it's not going to be a good situation. We talk about the problem all the time. What are the solutions?
Well, the solutions are, number one, to realize that it's a problem, and that is a big step. People are still saying, oh, you know, with a little extra weight, you know, little baby fat, she'll outgrow it. The next step would then be to look at ways that you can make small changes. You know, lifestyle issues, it's hard for people to make big permanent changes, so we're just looking at making small changes that are going to have a big effect, and there are some out there that are easy to adopt.
So what would be some of those?
Well, some of those, just to start with, get your kids moving more. Don't ever let them sit for more than 30 minutes at a time. If they've watched a show for 30 minutes, have them get up. I try this with my kids. I make them get up and stand up or walk around, walk in place during the commercials. You can get one of those little mini trampolines. Just the commercials really well, just how to
It's good for adults too.
Right.
I have a friend who does that and lost a lot of weight.
We have that in our home too. We have a little mini trampoline, and sometimes I use it and I'll just stick it in front of the TV, and the kids really like that. They're jumping on it all the time.
Even if it's walking and then running in place.
Yes.
Like I love watching Entertainment Tonight, you know, so I started doing it. And you'd be surprised how many calories. I mean, you start sweating after about 5 minutes.
And it doesn't feel like exercise for the kids, huh?
No, you know, as long as you put it in little doses, which is kids are really better adapted to doing that anyway. You know, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, and before you know it, you've added up many, many minutes. When you were talking before, I thought about the one time I sent my 6-year-old out to play outside. I'm like, just go outside, play outside. So I went out to check on him. About 10 minutes later, he was sitting on the curb playing with the neighbor's Game Boy.
Oh my gosh! Oh my!
So
break from
wasn't
TV.
jumping rope.
Yes. Go to the Game Boy.
So you really kind of either have to take up doing it with them. You know, if I gone outside with my son and said, let's kick a soccer ball around, or let's throw a frisbee, or let's just walk around the neighborhood and look at things.
Most of us could use that soccer ball.
Yeah, the parents
Big problem.
But what about fast foods? Because we're a fast food generation.
It is, and it's a real problem. I remember I used to take my kids to the McDonald's with the play place, so they would play too. And I realized after they'd eat a kid's meal with chicken nuggets and French fries and a soda or something, they'd still be hungry. And I would look at that, and I know they had enough calories. So I started, anytime I would take them there, I would bring a baggie of baby carrots and an apple, and I would cut up the apple and give them the carrots, and then they were fine.
Good for you. So this is really a personal thing for you too. I mean, this is a personal passion.
Right. Well, I have type 1 diabetes, and I found for myself the things that would help me control type 1 are the same things that would help prevent anyone from getting type 2.
For example, you have type 1 diabetes. Are your children more genetically predisposed to them possibly having that as well?
Possibly, but actually with type 2 you have a greater chance of developing if it's in your family than type 1.
I've often heard that type 2 can be father passed to daughter, daughter becomes mother, mother passed to son. Not true?
Type 2 not type 1.
Not type 1.
Type 2 used to be called, and I think still is called, adult onset, and that's the really sad thing, too, isn't it? Because it's now children.
Yeah.
Well, how do you find out you have that? Was it a blood test that they take?
Well, yes, they can test, they can just look at what your sugar is first thing in the morning before you've eaten anything, and they changed the criteria not long ago, or it's been a few years now, but it used to be your blood sugar needed to be under 140 milligrams per deciliter, and now they dropped it down to under 126. And they set up sort of a pre-diabetic range as well. So if your blood sugar is between 100 and 125, you technically are insulin resistant and you have pre-diabetes. And even when you're in the normal range, you can still be having problems because it really should be closer to 70.
Right.
And if you get it checked every year, and now it's 80 and now it's 90, it's still in the normal range, but you're really showing a trend towards moving in that direction, right?
Talk about some practical steps how we can make this work in our home. And you can find out more in Sheri's book, Diabetes Free Kids. Look for it in bookstores, or you can go to livingthelife.com.
Thank you,
Thank you so much. Wow. Up next, Carolyn and Sheri look at school lunches. Oh boy, this is important. Are they really good for our kids? Well, we'll find out how to make sure your kids are eating healthy away from home. So stay with us.
I'm here with Sheri Colberg, author of Diabetes Free Kids, and we're talking about school lunches. I have to say, in our school, it's been better. They've done a lot of things. They have a salad bar. They try to get the kids to make more appropriate choices. And our school districts we've done reports on that are really trying to get on board with this. But across the board, it's still not good, is it?
No, across the board it is not. If you have those school lunches, your kids are very lucky, and that's great. The other schools, you know, it takes a while to get things changed. As you know, the FDA, or the USDA has actually funded a lot of the school lunches and the foods that go to the school lunches at a reduced rate for the schools to buy them.
Yeah, I was reading that in your book that the USDA actually buys some of the extra meat, the meat that's left over, and sells it at a low cost to the school districts?
Right, so there are actually a lot of interest groups that are pushing for your kids to eat certain things, and they aren't necessarily the best things for your kids to eat.
This is the high-fat meat we're talking about.
This is the high-fat meat, right, the high-fat meat. I remember going to school lunch and sitting in with my kids, and they had their packed lunch, but I see what the other kids are eating, and tacos with greasy chicken, greasy meat and cheese, and no vegetables, no fruits.
Well, you have a solution, speaking of packed lunches, and you do suggest that parents pack the lunch.
I do, unless you know for sure, like at your children's school, that the lunches are worthwhile.
Are they actually picking those things?
Right,
That's the question.
That is a good question.
All right, put us to work here. What do we need to do?
So we're going to pack a lunch. It's really not that difficult. What I do suggest do is doing it the night before, so you don't wait till the last minute and you're in the morning and you're like, oh, here, just take the money. Right, so we'll start with, a sandwich is fine, but we want to make sure we use something with more fiber, and that's why we picked 100% whole wheat. And you actually need to look on the label. If it says enriched wheat, that doesn't mean it's whole wheat. All right?
I told you this, that I can't get my kids to eat the whole grain and the wheat bread. They just are stuck on the white bread, and I think it's because my husband is here. See, I'm telling on my husband.
Okay, well, that is a problem.
Yes, it is.
You look at this. It's not that white. I mean, not that brown. I remember when whole wheat bread looked like really thick. This looks almost kind of white.
I'll try that.
You can try that. If that doesn't work, try some other brands. There are certainly other brands out there, and just keep going until you find one. We did discuss the enriched whites, and I'm just not in favor of those because if
you don't like those.
Well, to me it's amazing that you can have wheat which is high in fiber by itself, and get a bread that has no fiber in it.
Yeah.
So that means that they took most of the nutrients out with it.
Okay. All right. I'll try harder. Okay. And then you like Smart Balance, the no trans fats or trans fats?
The idea is just if you're going to put some, you can use fat-free margarine, or you can reduce fat-calorie margarine. You can use reduced-calorie mayonnaise. You want to make sure, kids like butter. Yeah. My kids will take butter and eat it, just straight. Sometimes.
We do have cookie dough at our house.
Well, we do it in moderation. And then if you've got a healthier type of margarine, you don't worry about it so much. So you put a little bit of margarine on there.
Is that a little bit?
That's a little bit.
Not slopping it on,
Not slopping it on. A little bit of calories, not bad. The fat actually would help fill your kids up more, and that'll give them satiety faster.
Okay.
We'll use yeah, if they're young enough, they still like American cheese. But we make sure it's either 2% or reduced fat or fat-free. I actually usually buy the fat-free. You can put that on a sandwich next.
All right, they'll eat this. They like
Okay.
this.
If not, you can get, cheese is not inherently bad. The type of fat that's in it is not the best type of fat, but there are so many reduced fat cheese and dairy products out there now that you can just pick one with less fat in it.
Okay, I put a piece of meat on there, and this is good meat.
This is good meat. We've got oven roasted turkey breast that's 98% fat-free. The 98% can be a little tricky. It doesn't mean that only 2% of the calories come from fat. It's more than that. But you can sometimes buy fat-free or reduced fat meat.
Are these high sodium? I've always heard that you've got to watch with that. But with kids, does that matter that much?
It's not going to matter as much. Plus, that's going to be most of the sodium in our meal. We're not adding a whole lot more. So we can have that. Yeah, we can have a full sandwich. If we had a bigger baggie, we'd put it in a big baggie. But we'll have our sandwich.
Okay.
To go along with that, the only thing I really always make sure my kids have some kind of fruits and vegetables in their lunch.
Yeah.
Right. So we have all sorts of choices here. Depending what your kids like, baby carrots are really easy. You just dump them in a bag. You don't even have to peel them or think about them or wash them or anything.
Dip is a good thing too. If you can send those little dip things. Kids like to play with stuff.
Right, as long as it's not an excessive amount of dip. A little bit of dip's not bad. You can also buy reduced calorie or fat-free dip, and that works. I have one kid who loves carrots, one who loves cucumbers, and the ones that like the one don't like the other.
Mine too.
So,
There's always
she packs them in. We use little baggies at home because if you give your kid a big baggie and you say, here, get some for yourself, next thing you know, the whole baggie is filled to the top. Right, so
it doesn't work having them pack their own lunch. We actually tried that. Why don't you guys try packing your lunch? No.
No, well, actually, I've got mine trained. They'll do all the snacks themselves, right, in the small little baggies. Then we're going to get a fruit. You certainly during the summer you may, if they don't have school, if you can get strawberries or the seasonal fruit, that's fine. But year round you can always get oranges, apples, grapes,
peanuts. We have low-fat chips and some water. It's perfect.
We want to make sure we don't give them any sugared soda.
Okay.
Really not good for kids with diabetes or any kid for that matter.
All right. Once again, it's a great book. It's Sheri Colberg, the author of Diabetes-Free Kids. And if you want a little bit more information, you can look for the book in bookstores or go to livingthelife.com. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Hey, we've got all the food over here, guys, and we are not sharing.
I didn't see any Snickers in that.
No,
in that bag, did you?
Go ahead, Carol. We're waiting for the others.
All right. Hey, well, coming up, we'll meet a 12-year-old who's living with diabetes and helping to come up with a cure, too. So stay with us.